Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. I'm excited to have my good friend, Anthony Mattis, here with me today. And Anthony is an access consciousness facilitator, has a history of having been a chiropractor. He's a body wizard. He facilitates, he's an advanced access consciousness facilitator. So he facilitates the opening of the symphony class and 3-day body class, and is a total magician in so many ways. Welcome, Anthony. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we are going to actually be co-facilitating a 3-day body class, access consciousness 3-day body class together in Denver in April.
Yeah.
And we thought we would come and just play a little bit on the topic of bodies and being different. I'm doing a little kind of a series right now, a very informal series on neurodiversity. And last week's episode, we talked about the idea of XMen in access consciousness, and people that are extremely capable and different and judged as wrong and limited and disabled in this reality, but really have capabilities that don't exist, that people aren't aware of. And I love playing with that in regards to bodies because, the neurodivergent body is also very different. And we were just chatting before we started recording about, listening to your body and knowing what your body requires, because when you have a different body, it's not a standard model thing, it's not. And so how do you get clear on, with all the noise in the world on your own body and what it's saying, what it's asking for, and the honoring of that?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And, I am one of those people that, I guess back in my days in the 80s, I don't think they had the term neurodivergent. They just said I was remedial. And they sent me to room 12. all the kids that knew about room 12 referred to it as the retard room. So I'm sorry I know that's not a politically correct term in this day and age, but that's just what they called it back in the 80s, And so I would wait for everybody to, I would wait till the bell would ring. So everybody needed to be in their classrooms and in their seats before I actually walked into room 12 because, I was a semi-popular kid and I didn't want anybody to see me going in there. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't understand, what was going on. And there was actually kids in there that were seriously mentally handicapped as well. So I thought, and I was sort of lumped into that. And so for a kid who's 12 years old, 13 years old, 11 years old, you're like, is this what I'm capable of? Is this what am I going to be when I grow up if I'm slow and I have all these particular issues? And and so and thank God things have changed, and I think they do put kids and stuff usually in more appropriate places so they can thrive and utilize whatever their gifts and capacities and talents. But I still don't think it's enough. I think we're still trying to fit these kids into the mold that has been decided that if you excel within this mold, then you will be successful in life. Yeah. And we know that that's bullshit.
Totally. And it's funny because I was talking on the last episode about these kids, and I was saying in my XMen classes, people often come because of their kids, and then they're like, "Oh, we're actually talking about me," you know?
Yeah. 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 Totally.
Yeah.
So,
Your camera and your camera's a little off, like your words and your mouth moving, and now you're frozen.
oh
So
no. So
anyway.
I look like an old 1970s kung fu movie right now.
Exactly.
Cool.
Maybe, yeah, there you go. Okay, there you're back now. You were frozen too. So
Oh, sorry, everybody.
all good.
Anyway, so yeah, gosh, so I've been on this long, hard journey, really, just to, because I had that voice though along the way that would be like, okay, this is not you. You're not what they say you are. And yeah, maybe you suck at standardized testing. And you might have to go to community college and all those kinds of things, but you're not what they say you are. And
Yeah.
so I worked my ass off to try to fit that mold. Once I got like old enough to start like making choices for myself in my later teens and everything. So I worked my ass off to fit into that mold,
Yeah.
and just was perpetually unhappy. So it really wasn't until being a chiropractor, a holistic chiropractor, where I sort of explored the mind, body, soul type thing, not just musculoskeletal issues. I was always exploring different techniques and modalities just to really explore like my inner self, and just really to, as we say, reach our full potential, or, to be able to express whatever our talents and gifts are. And that's been a very
Yeah.
long journey, but it really hasn't, it wasn't until Access Consciousness, which was created by Gary Douglas, and the co-creator, Dr. Dane here, who's also a chiropractor,
Mm.
um, where I got to finally see where these neurodivergent, let's call them attributes,
Yeah.
were actually a
Yes.
gift.
Yeah.
But it took playing with these energetic tools that we learn in Access Consciousness to be like, oh my God, oh my God, I can see where my ADHD and my OCD and all that stuff is actually a gift, because it gives me an incredible awareness of the world around me.
Yeah.
And yeah, those things that distracted me in school, it made it hard for me to learn algebra. It made it hard for me to follow the teacher and sit in a fucking chair all day long. And what, we
Yeah.
have 45 minutes of recess? I mean, hell, I needed to stand up and bounce a basketball in class, but that would have been a distraction to everybody else, right? So anyway, so it's taken me into my late 40s and 50s to be like, oh my God, these are actually capacities. Everything that was made wrong about me is actually strong, as
Yeah.
as, as the term says. And so that's been a really cool awakening for me.
That's awesome. Well, and I love, like, just to bring in the body piece, it's like that thing of like, I need to bounce a basketball, or be in motion. It's like that is actually very much I mean, if you look at like ADHD, classic, like need to be moving, and I definitely have that as well. It's funny, if I look around my room here, I have like so many different like chairs and like portable desks and like all these different ways that I like sit and work and move. And because I just I can't like sit at a desk. I don't even have a desk. I have like these little, stands that like adjustable height, and
Nice.
because my body just doesn't like that,
Yeah.
and but the cool thing is that it's like, rather than make that wrong, for me, I'm like, okay, now I need to sit in a different position, or now I need to do this, or now I need to
Yeah.
stand up, or now I need to move, and the more I give my body what it asks for with the movement that it asks
Mhm.
for, and the like, just the presence of like acknowledging the contribution that my body is to everything that I do, everything that I create, and what it's showing me and inviting me to.
Yeah.
It's like the more fun I have, the more enjoyment I have, the more I create, the more successful I am. It's just like the inclusion of the body in all of that is so key. And it's giving us these cues, when you're like, bouncing the basketball helps
Right.
me to learn,
Right.
it's like, that's not wrong. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
your body's like,
Well,
include me,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
thank you for saying that. It's so interesting. It's yeah, and it when would you say you sort of discovered like what actually works for your body in a way that will help you thrive?
Oh man. I was just telling somebody this story yesterday. Early on, I mean, because as a teenager, I mean, I was always moving. Like I started dancing when I was 2. My mom lied about my age to get me into dance class because I wasn't old enough. Um, and I just was like always moving, dancing. I was a cheerleader. I was a diver. I did all these things in high school, and I had this. I actually I have a book coming out this year, hopefully, about bodies, and and I tell this story in the book, and it was kind of an instrumental moment in my life because I was taking antibiotics for acne. Actually, I was just like a plain old, teenager with acne, and I didn't want acne. So I was on antibiotics for 2 years, which I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it. I was like the pill that makes my acne go away. Great,
Right.
And my body actually went into massive meltdown, and I developed all the symptoms of a brain tumor.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't have a brain tumor. There was nothing there.
Interesting.
And it's called pseudotumor cerebri,
Wow.
fake brain tumor.
Yeah.
And my body was like, I'd like no to the pharmaceuticals, basically. Like at age 17, my
Mm,
body was like, we are not doing this,
mhm.
And we quickly realized what was going on and got off the drugs. And then they gave me other drugs to take care of it. And then I reacted to those. And it was just this like very clear indicator for my body of like this whole thing that they say is fine for your body. Not for me, not
Yeah.
for me,
Cool.
And that was the beginning, of
Yeah.
my body just being like, actually, I mean, for a long time, I was like, my body's really sensitive. I sort of like judged my body for being sensitive. But it really has developed, like, I've started to see it so much more as this incredible capacity. My body just gives me so much information always about what works for it, what doesn't, how to create, what the nature of the world, what's going on with other people. I mean, wow.
Yeah. That's really cool. And
Yeah.
actually, that's unusual, especially at that age. It's, so a lot of people, parents will be like, well, this is what the doctors told you. So, maybe there's something, this, you know what I mean? It's like we've also made in our society, the allopathic community, like the gatekeepers to our health. So to actually have that awareness at 17 years old, to be like, you know what? My body doesn't like this medicine. There's something wrong with the medicine. Whereas a lot of families would be like, no, this is what you need to take. Let your body get used to it and blah, blah, blah. So that's really cool and actually unusual. We take it for
Right.
granted how sensitive we are, right? And you said we make it wrong, but it's like a lot of the world is desensitive.
Well, yeah, we were
They're
talking about that too before
desensitized
we
even more
started.
so now than ever. I mean,
Yeah.
goodness, I just got an email about how by the time you're 18 years old today, you will have had 100 vaccines.
If
If
Yeah,
you do them, if you
if
get
you
the
follow
vaccine,
the schedule. I
if you
got the
do all
same
that,
email. Yeah. Wow.
100.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
wonder what it was back in my day. I don't remember, but it certainly wasn't 100.
No, well, before one particular individual was leading all of that stuff, it was hardly any.
Yeah, so like my question is, what is it that they're trying to create? It's like to me, it's like they want us to become dependent upon uh the world of pharmacopoeia.
Yeah,
And all that's
totally.
doing is putting a lot of money in certain people's pockets
Yeah.
to drive their agenda, but we won't go down
Yeah.
that train today.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does also, because for me, like you were saying about that whole world, like giving like entrusting our bodies to anybody, anybody outside of ourselves, is a diminishment of what, particularly for neurodivergence, let's just say, or like people that are different, the seekers of the world, the humanoids, as we call them, like our bodies function differently. And so to trust, like I actually, I, to me now, like I don't really go to the doctor. If my body asks to go, I will. But it hasn't asked in many, many years. But even with like alternative practitioners, like years ago, my body was like very clear with me. It was like, I would like some acupuncture. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's find somebody, because didn't have somebody at the time. And I just let my body show me. And that's a whole, other like, it's what my book is about. But, and also I would say like the body processes and a lot of the body tools and access help you to like listen more to that. But it like took me to this beautiful lady who, because my take on it all was like, if you think you're an expert on my body, you don't get to come anywhere near my body. Like I'm the expert on my body,
Yeah.
you know?
Cool.
And if you're willing to contribute to my awareness of my body and facilitate, like, then great,
Yeah.
let's play, you know?
Yeah.
And she's so amazing because every time I go see her, she walks in the room and she goes, "What do you know?"
Yeah. That's really awesome. I found an acupuncture like that too in Savannah, Georgia. She said the same exact thing to
That's so
me
cool.
too. I thought that was like, well, that's unusual. She's
Yeah.
like, no, I really like to hear what you're aware of because it actually helps me. She goes, it helps me to sort of, explore and ask questions. And it's brilliant. And I
Yeah.
think whether you're in the medical community or, the alternative community, that's the fucking first question they need to ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think
Yeah.
they've gotten way far away from how it was originally intended back, I guess, what, in the late 1800s.
Well, it's a business now, as you indicated.
Yeah.
It's like one of the biggest industries in the world.
Yeah.
There's so much money that is made off of our illness and sickness and lack of presence with our bodies, you know?
Yeah.
So to choose the path of a very dynamic presence with your body and listening, um, is also a very different choice. Like, talk about being willing to be different, you know?
Right.
And not putting your trust in the expertise, quote unquote, of doctors, but also, if there's a contribution there, like not
Right.
rejecting it either.
Yeah. Like utilize their services when required.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so let's talk about, for people that are like, you know, I'd like to have more of this, right? Let's talk about that. Like, what is there anything you can share about your journey of listening to your body and letting it guide you in matters of the body?
Well, a lot like you, I also had acne too, which is really hilarious. And they put me on a bunch of stuff and I just never got results. I don't know. It seemed like every time my body would do medicine or try to take something to prevent something, my body would say, fuck you. And they would make it worse.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's interesting, but I didn't have the tools back then, So, again, really, access has really helped me to learn how to just ask my body questions in different ways. Like, body, what do you require? But even back during my party days, like
Hmm.
I was always the one to check out first, like meaning like I was done. Like my body's like, don't go anymore, don't do this, don't take another drink or, whatever it was. It's like, they would refer to me as a lightweight, but I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like punish myself here and
Yeah.
make myself sick. You know what I mean? So I kind of knew that I was very sensitive than most of the people around me. My body would say enough way before everyone else. But really, it wasn't until I went to chiropractic school, and you really start learning about like, the power that makes the body, heals the body, that there's an intelligence within all of us. There's a consciousness within everything, even inanimate objects. And if you're willing to listen to the consciousness of things, you will be guided as to what will create greater for you. So that sort of began my journey. And what I found over time is it would actually make me even more sensitive to the world around me. You know,
Totally.
I found it really hard to like go to concerts, you know, because there's just so many people and so many like, you know, people's heads I would be aware of. And it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you know, and so I
And
was thinking of a,
bodies too. All the
what's that?
bodies like, "Ah."
Yeah, yeah. And like everybody's like, oh man, this is awesome. And I'm like, I can't wait till it's over. You know what I mean? I'm like, something's wrong with me.
Me
Anyway,
too.
so you know, but again, it wasn't until access about, you know, especially with the 3-day body class, in that how, you know, we learned about access consciousness. That is, we learned about how the body, our bodies are giving us information about the world around us constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly. It doesn't take a break. There's no vacation.
Yeah.
No vacation.
Yeah.
Every
Well,
every millisecond of every day for the rest of your life, your body is giving you awareness, and it's like, fuck, can't I just take a break for a minute?
well, but the thing that's so cool about that is like there's no vacation. And yet for me, I'm like, I don't want a vacation from that. Like, because what I've and it's definitely taken me some time and a lot of tools and, presence and choice to get there. But my body is an incredible source of pleasure. Like the
Right,
information and the awareness and the sensations and like the universe that my body is so deeply pleasurable for me that like, I mean, even as I'm just sitting here talking to you, like there's so
yeah,
much that I'm aware of in my body and my body's like, yes,
yeah,
um, and then it gets more subtle, where it's like it doesn't have to scream to get our attention. And sometimes
right,
it does. And I definitely have those moments where my body's like, listen, bitch,
yeah,
Um, but it's like what it instead of like needing a vacation from it, it's like it is a vacation. Like like living in my body is a vacation.
if like you and me, and what I've learned, if we're willing to actually turn towards our awarenesses and
Yes.
not run from it,
Yeah.
which again, where do you learn that? Like, where
Yeah.
did you learn that in school? Did you learn that in health class? No, like it's like, you know, in our society, it's like, hey, it's your birthday, let's drink. Hey, you're depressed, let's drink.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I mean? It's not like, okay, what do you require? What would be fun
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah.
What can you choose today that would create this joy of embodiment in living? And you are willing to make those choices. You're willing to ask. Not everybody even knows that that's an option,
Totally.
you
Totally.
know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really cool. And I'm grateful. And, you know, and it's funny though, because I've become more demanding too.
Me too. Me too.
You know?
Extremely so. Ask
Yeah.
everybody around me. They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
She knows what she wants.
Exactly. And but we know, but it's because we know how, like the way you have like your work station, you know that
Yeah.
it actually contributes to you. It's like
Yeah.
nutrients for your body, but it's
Yeah.
on an energetic level, you know?
Totally. Well, and just to bring in the overarching topic of my podcast is the entrepreneurial biome. And
Mm.
so we talk about nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living,
Oh, there you
and
go.
seeing it as an ecosystem,
Yeah,
and when your body is thriving and happy and it's like that is a massive contribution to everything that you're creating, to your relationships, to your money flows. Like it all contributes to everything.
totally.
And and so, and I think one of the things to also just sort of point out here for people that are like, yes, please, I'd like more of that, is it's an X-Men tool. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. So meaning like, first of all, that just sort of shuts your brain off, which is great. Um, but that when there's something going on, like for you taking acne medication and it didn't work, or for me taking it and I had a brain tumor symptoms, like it's like rather than seeing anything like that that goes on with our bodies as a problem and going, oh my God, this is so awful. I'm so, I'm a victim of my body. My body's like out to get me, going into the curiosity of it and going, okay, body, what are you showing me? What are you communicating with me?
Exactly. Yep.
And getting curious about it. And as you get curious, if you're really willing to let go of the perspective that it's a problem, which can be tricky when you're in pain or
Sure.
ill or, but it's like we got to get vulnerable with ourselves and our bodies and get out of the problem point of view and into the curiosity of, okay, if this wasn't a problem, what would the possibility be? What is it
Mm,
that my body is showing me here that is actually contributing to the future I'm asking for, the life
mhm.
I'm asking for,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you stay with it and you just stay in that curiosity and you're willing to listen and just play, there's no getting it right. Like you just have to
Right.
explore,
Yeah.
it's like it opens these doors to this incredible, communion really that we get to have with our bodies. But you gotta like step onto the path and continue to,
Yeah, and you have to stay with the question because a lot of times people will, when they start asking questions, they try to find an answer immediately, and
Yeah.
sometimes you may need to stay on, let's say, the path of the question, um, so you can get the awareness. It may take a day, it may take 3 days, it may take 3 weeks, but what will start to happen, at least I've noticed, is like as you stay in the question, like, body, what do you require? Things start to kind of like show up in your life, right? And then you're like, oh, that, or not that, right? Based on the question that you've been asking for your body. So it's like you almost feel your body lean into the thing that's going to contribute and lean away from the thing that it's like, no more,
Totally.
and that's really
Yeah.
cool, but it doesn't necessarily happen like the day of. Sometimes it
Right.
does, but sometimes you gotta, and that's where it is because we're so used to trying to figure it out. And so it is a different way of being in the world on a daily basis.
It is, and it's a long game, like
Right.
when I was having this chat yesterday about what happened in my teens with the antibiotics, I'm like, I'm almost 53 and um I'm like, I think I have to do the math always, but yeah, I'm almost 53. Whatever that means. I'm actually like 16. But I like my body's greater than it was when I was 17 when that happened, and it's like, I'm still like, that experience is actually still gifting to me. It's
Yeah.
gifted so much awareness to me. And I've spent like decades really like healing my gut and healing my body from that because it completely decimated my intestinal
Yeah.
flora. I mean, 2
Yeah.
years of antibiotics is like
I
super
know.
hardcore.
Oh my God.
Um, so, but, but it, but it's like there's such a gift to it, and it's been challenging at times, and my health was really compromised for quite a while. Like I would say a good, maybe 15 years even after that experience. Like, but it's just been constantly inviting me into more and greater and more and greater. And as I honor my body, I honor me, my life grows, my business grows like in a really different way. I get to be the difference that I be and honor that, not judge it, and my body has been such a big part of showing me that. And so it's like, and there's no end to it. I'm not like, well, now it's all good. I'm done. I'm, good for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's like I get to create my body every day, you
Right.
know,
Right.
and that's so cool because that's where our bodies can become greater every day, which is really that's absolutely my perspective on it
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
is my body gets greater every day, not it doesn't age.
Yeah. I like that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and your point of view creates your reality, and then if you have the tools to start to really play with that,
Yeah.
then you begin to open up a whole new future for yourself and your body from the difference that you are, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really cool. It's really cool because if you
Yeah.
listen, your body will guide you to what will work for it.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
And so just a little mention about the body processes of access consciousness, because for me, that's been a really massive part of the change that I've been able to create. And when I started doing access consciousness and having the energetic, it's energetic processes that are run on the body, it's energy work. When I started receiving those and taking the body classes, was a major turning point in my health and my healing and my, everything with my body, my listening to my body. So that's a tool that is just so, so powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, again, and it'll help you to be more in tune, if you will, to
Yeah.
what your body requires. Where,
Yeah.
like, a lot of people are like, but what if you're clueless? What if I'm clueless about what my body requires? I don't know. I'm following all this stuff on Instagram and take this supplement, take this powder, take that. But you'll know. You'll
Yeah.
know because your body will be like that. And
Hmm.
that amplifies as a result of taking these 3-day body classes. You
Yeah.
become more sensitive to the world around you and you have more clarity as to what your body actually requires for it to thrive, which is really cool. And it's really about creating possibilities. So, and yeah, and it has for me, I remember my early days and even till today, but when I first took body process classes, I remember like a lot of the things I was never able to change in therapy sort of like started to like dissolve, or like the energetics of it started to reveal itself like
Mm.
here, where I can finally look at it. It wasn't like this like mysterious thing that I wasn't quite able to get to with the therapist, no matter how much we try to dig up the unconscious mind and all that kind of crap. And I thought that was like really neat, and that came as a result of just receiving these body processes. I'm like, oh my god, there's that thing that's been sort of like an Achilles heel issue for me my entire life. Now it's like right in front of my face, and then you get these amazing tools to learn how to now deal with it and dissolve it, so you're not at the effect of it anymore. So that was like something that was like beyond the body that I found really fucking awesome. I'm like, I had no idea. I'm like, oh, it's a body class. There'll be fun body things, right?
Right.
Yes, and so much more.
So much more.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
much more.
that was so cool.
My business always expands when I take body classes. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, yeah, because it's about receiving, It's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and you just, the 3-day body class, like you just basically exchange body processes for 3 days and you can sleep on the table, most of it. And you're running a process on your partner and then you receive and you can just like we drop into this incredible peace and space and
Yeah.
the body is just like slurp it up,
Exactly.
and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like adding, all kinds of amazing minerals to the soil and then things just thrive,
Yeah.
and you don't have to figure out why or what, you don't have to work at the change, you just receive. And
Totally.
yeah. And for those of you who are listening who are like, I would love to do that. And maybe you don't even know about access consciousness or you're just finding out about it. Um, the 3-day body class it's a class, it's an access consciousness class, and it actually has a prerequisite of taking the access consciousness bars and foundation class. So there is you have to do a 1-day class, and then the foundation, that's the bars class, and then the foundation class is 3.5, 4 days, depending on who's doing it, how they're doing it. So those are prerequisites, but those are available all over the world. And the access bars is actually a body process as well. So
Mhm.
you can learn it in a day. It's amazing. I mean, we could, have a whole conversation about
Yeah.
that. That's a massive, like, that's a tool I just would never want to live without.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It descrambles the brain.
Yeah, totally.
It's so great. It descrambles the brain, and now we're starting to actually create like these little research projects and stuff like that, where now it's showing like evidence that it can help like just one session, a 190-minute session can help anxiety and depression like as much as like, I don't know, I think it was like 90% or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's whether it's, you know, genetic depression or anxiety or situational. It had
Yeah.
huge effects. Just one bar session after a 90-minute session, which I thought was really cool. And I would love to see like a bigger study, but like I don't need it. I don't need that information. I know there's
Yeah.
people out in the world who's like, well, do you have any scientific data that proves these anecdotes? You know, and I'm like, well, I don't need that, motherfucker. I just lay down and receive and see if it works or not, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I'm
but
like
for those
grumpy
of you
and
out there who need it,
like brain
it's
fog.
there.
Yeah. And then you get off the table and you're like, oh, I can see clearly now the room
Yeah,
has gone. You
exactly.
know?
But it's like,
Yeah.
who's gonna do that's a big study? You think the pharmaceutical industry wants this information out there? Hell
No
no. Nobody
way.
would be addicted to Xanax anymore and all
Exactly.
the anti-anxieties and stuff, you know?
Yeah. 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 Like, what if we could really stop making ourselves the greatest customers for the pharmaceutical industry and instead like thrive with our bodies because
Yeah.
we have communion with them. And to me, that's a huge part of my ask for the world.
Isn't it amazing? Like, oh my God, I'm having like a moment of like, wow. It's like people say we're brainwashed. I'm like, wait a minute. You're the one popping all the pills. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, so maybe what I do doesn't, you haven't seen it anywhere, especially on commercials, you know what I mean? But it's like, have you listened to the side effects of these things? The
I
side
know.
effects are longer than whatever they claim the benefits are.
Yeah.
Do you ignore that piece?
Well, I think the US is the only country that allows pharmaceutical companies to
For
do
real? It's just the US,
commercials.
huh?
Yeah, so we have this unique thing here where
Wow.
they go, like, take the, they show somebody like all happy and, tiptoeing through the tulips
I
because they
know.
took their drug, and then they're like, the side
Yeah.
effects are brain bleeding,
Yeah. Bleeding out of your
vision.
anus, out of
Yeah.
your nipples, and out of your penis. You know, consult your doctor if any of these symptoms should arise, and bleeding out of your eyeballs, you know.
Death,
And I'm not exaggerating.
paralysis. Yeah, no,
It's
it's
like
true. We're taking direct quotes from the thing.
it's like it's like holy shit, is anybody listening to this stuff?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Don't get me going. It infuriates me, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, and I'm just glad that we've discovered the things that we've discovered, and we get to have the joy of embodiment. Is the journey perfect? Absolutely not. But God, our lives are so much better than they've ever been.
Yeah, and in a weird way, it is perfect, like, it just
Yeah,
not from the judgment of it, but just from the, like, I am absolutely fascinated by what my body shows me all day long, every day, whether I'm in pain or not, or stressed out or whatever is going on, it's like, it all leads to greater always, and
yeah,
I know that. I know that now, and that's an awareness I wouldn't give
yeah.
up for anything.
Do you find yourself judging your body way less?
Oh my God. Yes, totally. I mean, I
Yeah,
definitely still judge my body, but wow, so much
yeah,
less. And
yeah. Me
I
too.
think also we don't realize like judging our body, like when we say judge your body, it's like, the first thing most people think of is the size and shape and,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but there's also the judgments of like how your body functions, what 3 meals a day, food groups, like those are all also judgments about the
Yeah.
body,
Yeah. Yep.
so there's a huge universe of judgments about the body that we don't even realize are judgments on top
Exactly.
of, thinking your body's horrible, which
Yeah.
most people have too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was like coming to Access. It's like I had to basically unlearn basically like 90% of the things I learned in chiropractic school because it does. It's like even like having the quote unquote holistic education is like don't eat gluten, don't eat this, don't eat that. You know what I mean? And it's like all these different things. And it's like, where's there a question in that?
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to food and drinks, it's like everybody's bodies is so different and unique. You may need to eat carbs
Right.
and I may need to eat more protein, you know what I mean? And your body will break it and assimilate it because that's what you require.
Yeah.
right? And whatever research that they're finding, that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially neurodivergent people, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or, XMen as we call it. So it's like, it's really about being in the question and choosing what actually works for you and your body at the end of the day.
Yeah. And judging none of it. I mean, like last week I was having a day where I was like, today is a steak and Coke day. Like I needed a lot of steak and a lot of Coke.
Yeah.
Like
Not
Coca-Cola.
cocaine,
Yeah. Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
My body needed sugar and it needed steak. My body needs steak. Like that's one of its favorite things. But it's just like, okay, great. And I actually did have a few weeks ago, my body very clearly asked for antibiotics. I had a stomach bug that I picked up in Costa Rica, and it was really messing with me. And after 2 weeks of trying to deal with it, it was like my body just one day went, "I'd like antibiotics right now, please."
Yeah.
And I just went. I followed the energy. I went to a place. An hour later, I had them, and I took them for 3 days. And they definitely wreaked a little havoc, but they helped. Like they made the thing go away, and then I just dealt afterwards with the effect. But so that's not like the pharmaceutical stuff isn't wrong either. It's just gotten so out of control,
Right. Totally.
And occasionally they do contribute,
Yeah.
And if
Look,
we
I'm
don't judge any
grateful
of
we live
it.
in 2024,
What's that?
I said I'm grateful we live in the year 2024. There's a lot of great medicines out there in the world that, a lot of people wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for certain medications. So we're not poo-pooing it all away. But like you said, 100 vaccines before you're 18 years old. It's a little bit, giving kids Prozac at 9 years old. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah. I mean, ask their bodies, and when you have these tools, then you.
Yeah. And
you
mom and dad, maybe you should look at yourselves too in the process. It's not, you didn't give birth to a little, demon child. The kid's reacting to the world around it. So you may want to look at your own stuff, mommy and daddy, too, before you start putting your kid on Prozac.
Spoken from 2 parents who have been through the ringer in so many ways.
Sure. Totally.
And looked at ourselves dynamically.
Yeah. Continue to do so.
Exactly.
Not always comfortable.
That's another podcast episode.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I think we had a couple of questions. You want to answer those, or?
I kind of feel like we did. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
In an indirect way. Yeah.
Well, it's great chatting with you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.